How's it going, everybody? Welcome to our YouTube live interview. This is my first YouTube live I've done in a very long time. For those that don't know, my name is James B. McDaniel. I am the digital host for HGTV, and for the past 3 years, I was the digital host for Travel Channel, and I actually got to be a part of the Wraith Chasers show, Haunted Live. I got to appear on each episode, really got to know them, and when I found out they were going to be on an episode of Unidentified with Demi Lovato, I thought, I've got to get them on here. I've got to talk to them about what it was like working with Demi Lovato and being a part of this show that went beyond just ghosts. So I'm going to bring on our two Wraith Chasers right now. Welcome, Mike G, Chris. Thank you guys for joining us so much. And I told everybody we were going to have a special guest. It's not a Lovato. It was never going to be a Lovato. But we've got one of the key producers of this show and one of the key producers of Haunted Live. Everyone welcome Andrew Knock.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, James.
Hi, Andrew.
All of y'all, thank you so much for joining me here today. And I want to point out, I just saw this on Facebook. 3 years ago today, we were all in War Trace, Tennessee, episode 5 of Haunted Live at the Walking Horse Hotel.
Yeah.
Yes. Where something scratched me. I don't know what scratched me. It might have been a dog. I don't think it was a dog, but something scratched my ankle. I was sick for a few weeks after that. So let's start, Andrew. Let's start with you because you helped put this show together. How did this show come into being?
So I'm going to start by saying something. This is not Unidentified with Demi Lovato, which is streaming now on Peacock, isn't really a paranormal show. It's not a UFO show. This is a show about one of the world's biggest pop stars who had a very significant life-changing moment. They witnessed a UFO. They believed they encountered extraterrestrials, and they wanted to do something about that. They wanted to spread the word in a positive way. So Demi did a talk show last year, and one of the guests that they had was Dr. Stephen Greer, who is very big into the disclosure movement in the UFO community. He has this technique called Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which is very controversial.
A great documentary.
Yes, which is also a very good documentary streaming on Amazon as well. And Demi wanted to take this knowledge that they had just had, so I'm going to get the pronouns right, and try and just share it with other people because they are just trying to understand what happened to them, and they wanted to share it with their best friend, Matthew Scott Montgomery, who's this hilarious, lovable character, and their oldest sister, Dallas. And they got together with Good Story Entertainment, who also produced Demi's talk show, and really wanted to do some sort of exploration. They didn't really know what they exactly wanted to do, but they wanted to meet other people who had also had firsthand encounters. They wanted to go to places that had some sort of energy about them, meet experts, and really just do a deep dive into this genre and this phenomena, I should say. And that's how the show came about.
I really like that, Andrew. I like that you're saying it. Like, we didn't go in saying this is going to be a paranormal show. This is about Demi exploring what happened to her and wanting to dig deeper. And I think a lot of us can identify with that. Years ago, I saw a UFO, but I didn't have the means to go about really doing a deep dive and being able to bring in experts like Mike and Chris. Also, I want to say I like what y'all did on y'all's episode, putting up, like, at the time this was filmed, Demi had not come out as non-binary yet. And I want to say, like, if I end up messing up and saying something like that, it's not an attack on Demi. It's just me being a big dumb guy. But I love the fact that they did this, and I love the fact they went out and got Mike and got Chris. And I'm assuming Andrew, that you're one of the ones that said, you know what? I know some guys.
Absolutely. Yeah. Some of you may know that I've worked with the Wraith Chasers, Chris and Mike, and the other guys for many years now on Ghost Asylum, Haunted Towns, Haunted Live, Exorcism Live. And we just, we have a great working relationship. And, what we wanted to ask big questions with this show, big questions that Demi had posed. And one of them was because Demi had a near-death experience recently, big headlines about this terrible incident that Demi had. And one of the things that they wanted to explore is there a connection between what we believe is extraterrestrials and our spirits? So we wanted to find a location that had reports of both human entities, cryptozoology, kind of monsters, UFOs, ETs, greys, everything. And we wanted to find someone who had that kind of knowledge that could look into all these different kind of aspects and really guide Demi and their friends on an exploration and investigation. And the Wraith Chasers were the number one choice for me. I was like, these guys, they get it. They're smart. They know how to they're going to work well with Demi and their friends as well.
Absolutely. I've got to tell you, when I tuned in to watch this episode, all I knew this episode was going to be about was ghosts. Like, I know my friends, the UFO brothers from the Invasion of Area 51, they're on the first episode, and I'm going to try and have them on later this week to talk about the same things. And then when I find out we're not only dealing with ghosts, potentially, we're dealing with extraterrestrials and potentially giants, I needed to contact my cardiologist. Like, I was so excited. I'm into all these things. Like, I've listened to so many hours of paranormal radio, specifically super into giants. Mike and Chris, start in whatever order you want. Have you ever dealt with a case like this where you have this many potential paranormal aspects involved? And what was it like walking into this situation?
I can say for myself, never like this. We were very excited when Andrew called. I had never done anything even similar to this. I'd never really thought that much about the whole UFO paranormal crossover. I had always believed in the possibility of UFOs and extraterrestrial life. Obviously, I mean, this universe is so vast, you would have to be, pretty close-minded to say that we're the only ones out here. But I was very interested in doing the project. We didn't even know for months that it was going to be Demi Lovato. Andrew was very mum on that. So,
that's interesting. Okay.
Mike and I were going back and forth, like, who do you think it is? Because, I mean, we're not big pop star guys, so we were looking on our phones, Googling, who's the hottest pop stars and all that kind of stuff. But no, not on this scale, not when it comes to giants, cryptoids, and, extraterrestrials and ghosts. But I will tell you, it had been a lifelong dream of mine to investigate vulture mines, so I can check that off the list thanks to Mr. Knock over here.
How long were you guys out there? How long did this investigation last?
We were there 2 nights.
Okay.
2 nights. Yeah, so yeah, what you see in the episode is that, 2 days of investigating. I mean, I honestly thought we were going to come in and maybe, I guess after we talked about it briefly, like kind of linking the two. So we're going to come in and do the paranormal side and do what we know best, but
right.
It was a great, I mean, we talk about it to this day, and every weekend, every Q&A we're doing, it's like, it just brought a whole new light, a whole new level of what ifs, and what possibilities could this be, of ghosts, entities, or extraterrestrials. Could it be the same? So it kind of brought this whole new element of what ifs to our bag of tricks. And it's funny, we were just this past weekend in Henricus Park in Virginia, and this lady didn't even know about the episode, didn't even watch it yet. And she raises her hand and she starts asking questions along these lines, like, is there a possibility of these actually being extraterrestrials? And is there any way during tonight's investigation we can actually go skywatch? And we're like, unfortunately, it was like cloudy and rainy and stuff, so we really wouldn't have that. But I'm like, this is amazing. It's like, I think more people are into this than I knew, and I think than Chris knew. So it's like, we can do something like this. It's bringing the two of them together. So definitely an amazing, amazing experience. I'm so glad we were part of it, and can't thank Andrew enough for recommending that and making it happen, because it was cool. I mean, what a wild ride. It was only a couple days, but I'll never forget it.
When I do my Facebook lives, one of the things I do ask a lot of fans is like when we'll do something for, say, Paranormal Caught on Camera, like, what are you looking forward to the most? What do you want to see here? What do you believe in? And the top two are usually ghosts and extraterrestrials. Those are generally the top two. And I do think there's a lot of crossover between fans. Speaking of which, we have a lot of familiar faces here in the chat tonight. Jenny Woodman. I know y'all know Jamie Davis. Jamie's here. Trina Wagner's here. Jen Santner, Hetty King. Let's see, Carletta Puckett, Trina Wagner. So many familiar names. So, and y'all, everybody watching at home, if you have questions, please throw them in here. So I like that you guys are getting involved here in the extraterrestrial thing, in the UFO UAP thing, at maybe the best time in history, where we've now gone a year or two with regular stories about these in the New York Times, the Defense Department coming out saying like these exist and we don't know what they are. And I really like finding out that you're discovering yourself that these fans are seriously into it. I thought I was leading to a question there, but really I wanted to ask, like, you guys have done so, like, you guys are true veterans of paranormal investigation. You, like, from working on Haunted Live with you, I know you can never count to just show up to a building and the ghosts show up, the paranormal entities show up, whatever they are. It seems like in this case, did the paranormal evidence reveal itself as quickly in real life as it looked to on screen? Because it seemed like as soon as you guys walked into these buildings, things just started popping off.
I think it was very charged. You know, there's a couple of more people than just us involved when it comes to a television production. And I think everybody's energy, I think these entities feed off of all these different energies. I think that's why we had such great success with Haunted Live. You have so many producers coming in and out and so many cameramen and different types of people from different walks of life. And they all share their energy with whatever is inhabiting the place, the location. And I think they feed off of that. It could, be the same thing with extraterrestrials. It really kind of changed my perspective doing this project. It took me to a place I had never really wanted to go or ever even thought about going before. You know, maybe these are interdimensional type beings instead of ghosts. Maybe instead of grandma, this is some sort of somebody from a different dimension, and we're just crossing paths for a moment in time and trying to communicate. Maybe we're the ghosts to them, or maybe these are extraterrestrials that have been here from the beginning, and they just kind of play with us every now and then, or they communicate with us at will or whenever they want. But it was just such an amazing experience. And yeah, that night it was like definitely charged. It started right off the bat. As soon as we got into some of those buildings with Demi and Matthew, for myself, I can say it was right off the bat with the Wraith pod. We were getting some cool EVPs, a lot of activity. It was just, when you walk into a place, you can feel kind of, I'm not like a feel kind of person, but you can kind of sense the energy. And this place was just, it was ready to rock.
Absolutely.
Andrew,
I just want to jump in for a second because
yeah,
it is difficult when you are editing these shows that you want to keep the story and the action going, but you also want to try and show what it's really like, because it wasn't as, answer as you see in a lot of these shows and a lot of TV shows. The truth is there is space in between where there's no activity, where Chris may say, well, let's try doing this and let's see if this works. Or Demi suggested doing something, as you see in the show, when Matthew and Chris leave the room and leave Demi alone to try and get a better response. So when you're editing these shows, because of the time constraint, it ends up seeing like there's way more action in a short period of time. Whereas in the truth, we're out there for hours and hours and hours for 2 nights, and it's condensed down. But the thread of what was happening is true in what you see. It wasn't cut back and forth in terms of like things happening out of sequence. And that's one of the things that was a little bit different about this show, is we tried to do everything live in one take. And that's another reason why I knew these guys would be great, because they'd done Haunted Live. Yeah. And to do 10 weekly live shows is no joke. A lot of people in the paranormal sphere were shaking their boots having to do that live show every single Friday night. And these guys were amazing at it. And I knew, because the way Demi likes to work is to do everything once, and that's it. Demi doesn't want to do second takes. Demi doesn't want to do anything out of order. Demi just wants to do everything like an experience, like for a real experience for them and Dallas and Matthew. And we have to capture it. And when it happens, it happens. And that's why it was such an incredible location to go to. We're very lucky. And I do think, and I know Chris and Mike can back me up on this, that there was some sort of energy from Demi that I think they were feeding off as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think both of them. I was with Dallas, and she definitely had some kind of connection with, I think, either with that place itself or just what we were investigating. But Demi as well. Just when we kind of combined, when we met up throughout the investigation, it seems like both sisters had some sort of connection with either what's at Vulture City or just everything that we were investigating, that as a whole. So I think that definitely helped the element, of the activity and stuff we got.
I want to Oh, sorry about that, Mike. I want to real quick address this question we have up on screen right now. Has the show you're all talking about aired yet? Yes. This show is on the Peacock network. This is NBC's new streaming platform. And here's the great thing. There's paid versions, but you can sign up for free. I personally know this because I signed up for free to watch the episodes of this show. So as soon as we're off the air, you can go to Peacock. I believe it's peacock.com. Sign up for free and watch these episodes with very little commercial interruption. And Mike, what you were talking about, I was actually really surprised, as in I went in I already knew a good bit about Demi because she used to date MMA superstar Luke Rockhold, and I've covered MMA for over a decade for ESPN 977 in Louisiana. And I've read a lot about her because she actually trained in MMA and never competed. But people said if she did, she would have done very, very well. But I wasn't expecting to like the other cast members this much. I didn't know much about them. I didn't know about her sister Dallas. And I really, really enjoyed Dallas. She was one of my favorite parts of the show. And I liked being able to watch you and her working together. I thought you did really well. And it definitely did seem like she had a real connection there.
Oh yeah, thanks. She was absolutely amazing. I mean, she's one of those people, like, outside of this, you can hang out with her. She's just very genuine, just a good soul. It's like you can talk to somebody and look in their eyes and just a lot of fun, just the real deal. And investigating with her, I mean, she dove right in, and she knew what she was doing, and her having some sort of connection just. I mean, I followed her lead. It felt like, I mean, I was the one following her. And I mean, she was just awesome. I would work with her anytime.
Absolutely.
I mean, totally cool. I don't want to say chick. Very awesome person. I mean,
now,
I loved her to death. She was great.
Andrew, you kind of jumped in on this right before I was going to ask you, but I'm going to take a different little tact here. It has to be difficult, even shooting live like this, to get all the things you pick up into the episode when it seems like a lot was going on. For instance, we saw these guys asking questions with their recorders, but I don't think we ever really got to look back at that evidence. It has to be very difficult for a guy like you and the other producers to cut everything down to fit into a 22-minute episode when you're working, when just Mike and Chris were there for 2 days.
Yeah, I mean, it ended up being a 5-minute episode. So they're hour-long episodes.
There you go.
And it's funny because I sent some evidence to Mike actually last week. It was a disembodied voice that was captured during one of the scenes with Mike and Dallas. And they're talking about the Giants, and there's this voice that comes through underneath it. It's like, oh, ho, ho, okay. And it was really creepy. And I heard it a million times in the edit bay. And every time I played it to someone, they were like, that's not anything. But they're not paranormal investigators. They're just editors. They're not really listening for that.
Right.
But I wasn't there. It wasn't my voice. I don't know whose voice it could have been. It was definitely something that was responding to them that was captured. But, it's like another thing going back to Haunted Live is, a lot of shows, and we used to do this on Ghost Asylum, was do a lot of record evidence, then go back over it later. What we learned with Haunted Live is there's different techniques you can use to do in the moment evidence reviews. And I think that's something we learned for this show. It's a little bit more satisfying, and because of the time constraints we had to make this show. Demi's very, very busy with lots and lots of projects going on. I mean, this is, a passion project for Demi, but it's not their main outlet, in case anyone doesn't know that. They have a whole pop thing going on as well. So, we didn't have time to do these evidence reviews like weeks later, things. So we just had to try and do everything, as I said, live and in the field, which is why, these guys, I knew these guys would bring the equipment. Like the spirit box worked really well at the portal. There's a mine shaft, which, these guys thought was probably a portal that was talked about by this Native American, the medicine man, David. And we used the spirit box there. And if you've seen the show, it's pretty amazing. It always blows my mind when these things actually work, because I'm kind of a skeptic.
Yeah.
When these things actually go off and work, and it's like, oh, okay. And Matthew, Demi's friend, lost his mind. I mean, you could see it in his face. It shook him to the core, which was what we wanted to do, basically.
It was
because he's a skeptic. We wanted the whole Demi's idea was to try and get his mind to be more open to the possibility of something outside of ourselves going on.
I didn't know he was I knew he was partially a skeptic going in, and it was a really well done episode, Andrew, because you're picking up all these different things, and then before you guys go to the what's it called, the nickel shaft, I think is the pit, like you're getting evidence in both locations where Mike was with Dallas, where Chris was with Demi and Matthew. Like basically beware of this shaft, beware of this pit, and then you all come together at the end and you get this amazing evidence. And listen, if anybody here in the chat has not seen it yet, definitely go and watch it. It is easy to access. You can do it on your phone, your computer, most smart TVs, again, absolutely for free. It's one of the most fascinating things I've seen. And Jen Santer, yeah, I can ask questions. Ask the questions and I will bring it to them. Here we go. Leslie says, Andrew, being a skeptic, have you ever had a paranormal experience?
Not too many, even though I've been in haunted places for most of my adult life with these guys. Standing in closets in Penhurst Asylum at 2 a.m, taking notes and stuff like that. But there was an incident with these guys that I personally was affected by. It was that place called the 1804 house in Tennessee. Is that what it's called, guys? It's in Nashville at 1803 house, 1804 house. We did an episode of Haunted Live there. There was a big mansion and then a little mansion next to it in Nashville.
That's called, I think they also call it Two Rivers. Two Rivers.
That's right.
That's it.
In the older building, we were up next to an open attic. And this wasn't while the cameras were rolling. I was talking to another executive producer, Shannon, and we were standing right below the stairs to the open attic. And something, I swear to God, it felt like ran its fingers all the way through the back of my hair like that. And I was about 2 feet from Shannon. You know Shannon, James. Yeah. And she looked at me and I looked at her, and something like static went through my hair. I mean, they have very good taste to go through my head. It's very good.
It's phenomenal hair.
But I was so close to Shannon, and it was just like, wow. So it was just a static feeling. And that's the most paranormal I've had. Though I will say, if you do watch Unidentified with Demi Lovato, there is, in the finale, we went to Sedona to do a sky watch, and there were things in the sky that none of us could explain. None of the cast, none of the crew, the grips, the PAs, everyone saw something in the sky that they couldn't explain, which is in the show as well. So that's 2 incidences.
Andrew, what I like the most about your stories, they're like very few, and then your one story is like a physical encounter with something you can't see, like a real deal hardcore paranormal experience. But I mean, when you are walking around with hair like that, you're kind of asking for it, Andrew.
I wasn't by myself. That's what was so strange. I was so close, and we were just having this intense conversation, like 2 feet from each other's face, and I just felt this thing, and that's what made it so kind of like, wow, that's weird. Because I think they wanted, if it was paranormal, wanted us to know that they were there right above this attic, which was supposed to be the most haunted place in this like side house, the older building.
Right.
And that's and sometimes, as you know, James and Chris and Mike, when you set up these episodes, there are things that happen, and you try to have cameras there to cover everything. You just can't capture everything all the time. And you just hope that on the night that something else is going to happen.
Right. I'm surprised they didn't come up and like do the mustache twist.
Okay, this is a question for everybody. We can start in whatever order y'all want to. I'm really curious to know what did you guys know about Vulture City before you found out you were going there? And like, well, let's start with Andrew. Andrew, is this something like you guys found, or did you already know a little bit about Vulture City going in? Because it sounds like at least Chris had heard of it before.
I had not heard of it, but I and the production team, which was a great team of producers, were specifically looking for a place that had reports of, as I said, UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, grays, and we were like, I don't know if a place like that really exists. I mean, Skinwalker Ranch is supposed to have all of these anomalies as well, and we were trying to think of somewhere, a little bit closer that was not quite as well known. Right. And when we kind of stumbled upon this place, it seemed perfect. And then when I talked to Chris and Mike, I believe they had heard of it, in which I was like, okay, well, this place is legit.
No, yeah. Obviously Ghost Adventures have been there. I saw that episode years ago. That's kind of what got me interested in it and what, brought it to my attention. But also reading about it, I knew about the extraterrestrial stuff. I knew about the sightings of things in the skies. I knew about the cryptids, but more so just the paranormal activity. I mean, this was a mine. Mines are tragic. There's a lot of deaths that happen at mines, any mines, especially one as old as this. So there's bound to be some spirits walking around. And just from the things I had watched on YouTube of just, people investigating on their own, and, episode of Ghost Adventures, and then people catching cryptids. I had seen videos of cryptids being caught up there. And it's also, very deeply rooted in Native American lore. So, I mean, it was just, I've heard about it, for the last 10 years. And I finally got the opportunity, because we don't get the opportunity to go out that direction very often in the United States. So
right.
It was cool to be able to go out in the desert and investigate aliens and cryptids. And I didn't even know about the giants until we got there. So, I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah, Mike, how do you prepare yourself for dealing with giants and potential giant ghosts or spirits?
I mean, I've heard of the place, but I didn't know anything more than just the name,
Right.
And I knew this place out in Arizona. And I've never watched an episode of Ghost Adventures except for that when I downloaded it just to see if I can get some quick, history of it, or just,
Yeah.
I got a little bit, just the names of the places, not that I took it, but that's the only episode I ever saw. So just kind of going in there pretty much fresh with just the stories we're going. It was like, I had no idea all that stuff was about it. So when we did the ritual, with the Native American prayer of protection and everything, the stories I heard, the things they were telling us, and our investigation was thrown in the deep end for me pretty much. It was like, it was fresh. So if there was a reaction, it was real, because I didn't know that, till we got in there. So it's like, we've been to Hawaii and we've investigated stuff with Native Americans before, and it's a whole new element. Spiritually, everything, just their belief system, so it's like everything was just one big ball in Vulture City. From, we can say it a million times, from extraterrestrials to ghosts to cryptids to now bringing a spiritual element to it. So you're kind of just on edge the whole time. And
that's one of the reasons. Another reason I wanted these guys on the show is because they hadn't been there before. And this was a little bit outside their comfort zone, because I wanted to kind of test them as well and give them a different experience, because I knew that they would react to this in a really interesting way. Matthew had never done anything like this before. Dallas has done some paranormal investigation with her mom. Demi's done extraterrestrial kind of contact sessions. But I thought it was going to be just a really fun combination of, these guys are a lot of fun, but they're really good at being guides. But them not knowing this place and not really knowing which way to turn would be really interesting on camera. And I think we nailed it.
And Andrew, something that I know about these guys that I don't talk about enough is how impressed I am with their integrity when doing these investigations. Because as most of the people watching know, I was generally sat outside. I was the digital host of Haunted Live, and I was usually sitting next to Mike. And I would be like, Mike, is this something? And he's like, no, that's not anything. I'm like, is this something? He's like, no. And this is what you're looking for in this instance. This is what you're looking for in this instance. It was really impressive, because I think there's probably a lot of other people out there that would just be like, oh yeah, that's definitely something, man. But not these guys. These guys have always been, in my opinion, in my dealings with them, more thoughtful, more measured, and incredibly honest when they think there's something and when they don't think there's something.
Well, thank you, James.
No,
I would agree with that. Yes. And that's one of the reasons why it's great to work with them.
Absolutely. Okay. So, for anybody that hasn't seen the episode yet, at the very beginning, Demi, Dallas, and I keep forgetting his name, and I hate that, Matthew Scott, they're sitting down with a couple who I get. Andrew, did these people own this place, or do they run it? What's that couple?
So J. Marie Yates, a wonderful couple. They are the property managers of Vulture City. So they look after the place. They are preservationists. They give tours when they can. it's a real mining town. It was one of the most profitable gold mines in all of Arizona for a while until it was shut down during World War II, and it was left to rot like a lot of these great landmarks in this country. And they are helping kind of preserve it and keep it alive right now.
So, by the way, shout out to Kimberly Camper, who's risking her life right now to watch the show. She says, I'm driving and listening. Kimberly, just be safe out there. But Kimberly Camper, wonderful woman. But y'all, when Demi, Dallas, and Matthew sit down with this couple, and I'm not making fun of them, their stories are wild. Their stories are straight up wild. They're talking about just there's grays walking around all the time. It just gets you set up for what's coming. And Mike and Chris, did you get a chance to meet this couple, or did y'all just come in for the later investigation with Demi, Dallas, and Matthew?
I mean, we met them. I
Okay.
didn't have that much of a conversation, like not in that depth of it. But I mean, so me watching the episode, and he's talking about things levitating, like how often you see it, too many to count, you know. So I was like, damn,
You usually don't get that level of like all the time. When are there aliens? All the time. Had lunch with them yesterday. Like that, they didn't say that, by the way. But like you don't usually get that level of intensity of experience from people.
Well, and you can also tell we've been to a lot of places, and we've interviewed a lot of people, a lot of people who run these types of locations, and you can tell that they're legit when they're talking to you. I mean, you can tell when you got a crazy and when you got somebody who's legit and they've experienced something, just by the way they're looking at you and their body language and the way they talk, and you can tell these people have really experienced some stuff at this mine. And I mean, I thought that the guy. He was such a great speaker. I was watching the episode. I was like, man, this guy's done this a time or two before with the interview. Me and Mike were like, he killed the interview. That was pretty good. But very, very cool people. And in fact, I think next year we're going to be doing an event out there now. We had talked to them, and we're going to go back out to Vulture Mine for some kind of con, right, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, it's cool because after meeting him there, stayed in touch with him. Great people, and it was just the other day we were messaging back and forth. And next October, it's called I think Vulture Con, I think is what it's called, because they just finished one this year, but they already locked us in for next October, so we get to go back and do it all again.
My next question was going to be if any of you know if this place is open for people going and visiting and doing investigations. But that right there's a great reason to go and a great opportunity to go and be out there in this amazing location with these guys right here. I love that.
Yeah, and it's close enough to you, Andrew. You can come out too, right? It's not far from LA.
It's probably like an 8-hour drive. It's really not that far, but it is kind of in the middle of nowhere. I mean, 8 hours isn't that bad. I just want to jump in and just say, Jay, it's really affected Jay Marie on an emotional level, and I think you see that in the scene where Demi's kind of talking about what they've experienced, because it is related so much to the land and the people that lived there before the mine was there. And that's what's really interesting about that location, as opposed to some of the other locations that we've all been to, is that they're emotionally invested in this place. And the local tribes are still there, and they're still very invested in the land. There is an active mine that's over the fence from the old Vulture mine that's still in operation. And it's still, it doesn't sit comfortably with a lot of the tribes there.
I didn't even know.
It's where they got the first uranium from for like the atom bombs in this area, which is another reason why UFOs or extraterrestrials might be interested in this location. Not just the gold that's been taken from the land, uranium, all sorts of precious elements.
Yeah, that can explain. Yeah, not only that, but also the power of the area. What seems like a very natural power, almost in the ground. Mike and Chris, I really liked the scene with the shaman medicine man. I don't want to use the wrong term here, who did like the protective ritual for y'all. And I really liked it because it's so similar to the fact that you guys, before all your investigations, you notably always do a prayer for protection. And I love that this guy was like basically doing the same thing from his perspective. What was that like? And have y'all ever had that done before? For instance, was something like that done for your investigation when you guys were in Hawaii and went down into like the lava tubes?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hawaii, they did it the same. They did the same thing, not the same ritual, but their local prayer of protection. So it's cool. It's emotional. It's like, I don't know what he's saying, but you can kind of feel what he's saying, if that makes sense, you
Right.
know. And we did pray. I mean, actually, when you get on Peacock, if you look at the thumbnail of the episode, it is us praying.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. But
Yeah,
I'm a big dummy, so that happens.
But
Yeah, unfortunately, we had to cut that part out just for time.
yeah, I mean
But the
whole
guys always do that, and they did that with Demi, and Demi is very enthusiastic about that as well.
I mean, like everything, like you're saying, you got to cut it down because that whole process was a lot longer. So it's like you feel the emotion when you're doing something for 15 minutes, not 15 seconds. So I think the episode portrayed that. But it was very cool just being in that location, being around a fire, and them telling their stories of what they're going to do, why they're going to protect us, and then going into the chanting and his song, if that's the right term for it.
Right.
It was an emotional thing. So if Jay gets to experience that often enough, maybe that's why that place is so close to him.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no, those guys were really great. We got to hang out with those guys behind the scenes and really talk to them. And I think they're probably going to be at the con as well. But, just very spiritual people, the same as the people over in Hawaii. Everything means something. And it's just it's amazing to hear different parts of the world and their culture and what they believe and that they're so, they believe in that wholeheartedly. And it's the same.
They believe and they care deeply.
Yeah. No, I mean, very cool guys. It was a very cool experience. They did something in Louisiana. I know Andrew and Mike remember this. It was me, Mike, and Doogie, where there was a priestess in Manchac Swamp. She did a different kind of ritual. I know they showed some of that on the episode, but that was also a pretty cool experience. Something I had never had done before. But
Were you guys there for the rattlesnake?
yes, and I thought we weren't supposed to talk about the rattlesnake.
Let's talk about the rattlesnake.
So just while we were waiting for Demi to get ready and just to get the cameras and the lights up at the fire pit scene, a rattlesnake showed up, a big rattlesnake.
Right
very
where
loud.
we were supposed to walk, like right where we were fixing to walk into.
Right from where the fire pit was to one of the buildings, I think it was the brothel. There was a very large, loud rattlesnake, and David, the Navajo medicine man, and Nicholas, his brother, kind of leapt into action. And they did this ritual to this snake. And they pretty much hypnotized this snake.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, don't anyone tell me there's a rattlesnake here. Because we didn't want to get rid of it, but we didn't want it to be a danger to anyone. And the time was kind of ticking, but they kind of leapt into action. And they did this other kind of ritual, I guess, with it.
They had a box. Remember their box?
Yeah, and they hypnotized this thing, and they were able to remove it. And I was like, okay, well, that's a good warm up for the evening because we're all like, holy shit.
That was actually one of my favorite parts of the night. I was over there with my cell phone recording it, and then I got these guys with these big camera rigs. They're like, hey, can you get the hell out of the way so we can But no, it was amazing because you could hear that thing from like 20 feet away. It was the first time I had ever heard a rattlesnake in my life. And like Mike and I are like, holy shit, is that a rattlesnake? And then all of a sudden they got this box and they started doing this little ritual thing and chanting, and we were like, oh, this is so cool. We got and then Andrew's like,
realize how
like, oh, by the way, you can't say anything to anybody about this because Demi will freak out. So.
Well, Demi may not have freaked out. I don't know, but I didn't want to take the chance.
Right.
But to me, it really just kind of like, it was a great example of how tied to the land these guys were.
Yeah.
That they saw these animals as kind of spirits and as important enough to kind of go and interact with and try and remove, and just it was all, these guys are so ingrained into the land. It was amazing.
And it's funny because it's like when we talked about that afterwards, being that they're that connected with the land and everything, we're like, wow, maybe so that's I forgot even how we worded to him, like, is that a good sign or something? He's like, no, that's not good. And we're like, oh, it's not good. And I can't remember now, it's been a while, but he explained why a rattlesnake showing up is like, there's basically something not good is going to happen tonight, so it led into, and this is even before we prayed. This is before the
So this was early on. You
this
were
was
just
earlier
about to
on,
get
yeah.
going.
prior to his prayer of protection and everything. So it was like, uh-oh, you know, what's going on tonight? But yeah, that thing was loud. We were over by that truck and we're like, you kidding me?
That's a pretty good rattlesnake impression, Mike. That's pretty solid. I've got to tell Andrew, this story alone, I feel like I need to tell you, I will pay pay-per-view prices, Floyd Mayweather prices for the video package, for the behind the scenes of this episode, for the uncut footage. I'm here. I just take my money, Andrew. I'm ready for it.
All right, I'll put it together on iMovie. That's right.
All right, we'll do the Patreon, like whatever it takes. Mike, I've got to tell you, I think you're like the scene with you in Dallas where you're using the SLS. That is the most times I've ever rewound something to like get a better look when you're both like, when the thing is on the SLS and it's big and you're both like giants. I just kept going back 15 seconds over and over and over. Like, tell me what your experience was in that situation, kind of compared to other SLS experiences.
I mean, they're made to pick up stuff. So a lot of times when people do use them and there's something sitting in a chair, in my opinion, 9 times out of 10, it's the chair. But there was many times in that. And I think after we saw I don't even know if it captured it fully because the cameraman, they were in front of us, but you couldn't even really see them. And by the time I think they came around, it went away. But I have never seen a stick figure top to bottom of that screen. And it wasn't like just a stick, it was the normal. And so when we both went, this is covering from top to bottom, and we both looked at each other and went, giants. It was like, that's all real. It's like, there's no script that say, look at each other and scream giants. It was like, all that came rushing through, like that backstory of what you're hearing. But there was a lot of little things on the table as well. And it's like, so we're thinking, for me, I'm going child. Like, we go into these places all the time, and you're thinking maybe there's a child spirit,
right?
But I got to keep going. Maybe it's what we typically picture an extraterrestrial, a little gray, you know, tiny. You know, we always hear stories of them being small. It's like, is it that? You know, so I kept having to kind of refresh my way of thinking and going, oh, this is a weird thing. Oh, giants. Oh, it might be a child spirit. Well, maybe it's an extraterrestrial. So, but that whole scene, that whole investigation part was pretty amazing, because even leaving that assay building, it's like she was getting emotional inside. And then when we got out, it was almost like she broke down, like, you know, crossing that threshold, you know, and something just, I thought first she was getting sick. You know, some people leave a haunted location and, you know, it's just like it's coming at them. They're sick and not feeling well. And she just broke down.
And it seemed like a mixture of like she said, like a mixture of joy, and it may be a mixture of like the relief of the weight off your shoulders of walking out of such a powerfully charged room, such a powerfully charged environment.
Right.
Now, one of the things I liked about this, and I've said, I think the people that listen to my stuff a lot know this, like, I've believed in ghosts my whole life because I grew up in a very haunted house where we experienced all these things as a family, but I've always been open to the fact, like, I believe in ghosts, but I don't know, I'm not saying I know what they are. Like, I'm not saying I know for a fact these are the spirits of people who've passed. And I like that that's kind of, that theme is a little part of this investigation. Could this be extraterrestrial? Could this be extra dimensional? Are these the spirits of dead people? Which it seemed like, especially with Chris, with your investigation with Demi in the brothel, where it seemed like you were communicating with, what was her name? Carmen. It seemed like you guys were communicating with a specific woman. I remember Demi said, like, I think it was the next day, I really want to get back and talk to Carmen some more.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you know, I kept having to bring it back to why we were here and what we were trying to discover, because, you know, I'm in paranormal investigation mode. So a lot of times I had to come up and say, okay, let's look at this a different way. Is this Carmen? Or is this, you know, maybe some sort of interdimensional being that's posing as Carmen? Or maybe Carmen was an extraterrestrial. It's like when you open that book, there are so many different possibilities. And that's why I really love the show and why I was very grateful to be a part of it, because it really changed my perspective, as I said before, on all the different things that these entities, spirits, ghosts could possibly be. And I never thought of them as extraterrestrials before. And now I got a whole different way of thinking.
Can I just jump in?
Yeah.
One of the things I found really interesting about their interaction between Chris and Matthew and Demi, and even, you know, with Mike and Dallas, was that when, for example, Demi would say, you know, are there UFOs here? Are there extraterrestrials here? There were no responses. And I was thinking, well, that kind of makes sense, because why would say if Carmen was a 19th century spirit, a woman of a 19th century spirit, they wouldn't know what a UFO is. You know, that wasn't a term that was around. Extraterrestrial wasn't a term that was around back then. You know, but when she said, it was when Demi said
of
star
this
people.
world. Oh, star
when Demi
people.
said star people, that got a response, because that could have been something, phrase that they had heard back in the 19th century from the local Native American tribes who believe in the star people as their ancestors, as their heroes, their gods. So that was very interesting that those kind of terms got responses, but more modern terms didn't. And I felt that it made it seem, you know, I don't know. It was a really interesting observation, I think.
I really appreciated some of the ways that Demi asked questions, because there was that one, and there was one where it was something along the lines of, are you not of this world, or are you of this world, that also got a response. So she did a good job of phrasing some of those questions, whether that was the beginning or as she got better as it went on. I really liked that. And Andrew, there you go. It seemed like both were naturals, honestly. Like, it really did. Andrew, one more question for you about the rattlesnake situation. So when this rattlesnake pops up, is the first thing that goes through your head, I can't be the one that gets Demi Lovato killed in the desert? Music superstar Demi Lovato.
Is that the first thing? Oh, absolutely, yes. Well, the first thing is, you know, we're going to make this set safe for everybody.
Right.
And then can we get it on camera?
Can
and
we catch it?
I pulled out my phone and started filming stuff like Chris did. I think the actual camera guys were busy setting up lights or something else at the time. Yeah, you don't want anything, because, you know, you're going to go, I mean, as you see the episode, and we all know, when you see something in infrared night vision, it looks very different from the actual experience. I mean, when Demi is singing to that entity, that spirit, serenading, it was completely dark. Like, you couldn't see anything. In the show, it doesn't look completely black. It was pitch black in there. And I was like hiding outside, just trying to like listen in. The camera guys were stood in doorways, trying not to get in the way at all. So me would be put off, or a spirit would be, you know, disturbed. So, you know, in the darkness, though, you don't always know what's there, and it's not just paranormal. It could be an FN rattlesnake. So, you know, there's only so much you can do to clear an area to make sure there's not something in there. I mean, you're talking about Warhorse Hotel in Tennessee. There was snakes in that building too, because I went down into the basement with Sonia, one of the other producers, and she jumped out of her red leather boots when she saw a snake in the basement there.
Sonia always has the absolute best wardrobe. Also,
I was not informed of this in any way when I randomly went walking around inside the building.
Maybe we now know what scratched me. Maybe just a snake attack.
Right.
But I'm going to let y'all go in just a second. I've got a couple more things. First of all, Chris and Mike, you guys do investigations all the time. Everybody in the chat right now is trying to get me to go on an investigation. And for everybody out there, I have wanted to for a while. I've literally gotten hit by 6 hurricanes in the last 2 years, which makes the getting out there, the finances, a little tough, but I'm going to do this soon. I'm definitely going to do this. And I really want to go to their convention out here at Vulture City. I really, really want to do that. But Mike and Chris, let me know where you're going to be investigating, where people need to go for tickets, and which ones are tickets still available for, because I know they go fast.
We're both like, which one? Oh man. Well,
somebody pull up the website.
If it's not a holiday, we're somewhere across the country investigating some haunted location. And I've been looking across the comments over here. We've made so many friends. We don't like to say fans. We like to say friends, because
they are friends.
I mean, I can see Jamie, I can see Hetty, so many people who come to so many events and support us. we have a great time. We do a Q&A, we do a presentation, we do a meet and greet, and then we all break into groups and we all investigate. And I can't tell you how many things that these people have taught me just from thinking outside the box and just getting another person's perspective on a paranormal investigation. I know this week we're going to start out at Bobby Mackey's on Thursday. We'll be at the Thomas House Hotel in Red Bowling Springs Friday and Saturday. And then we'll be back at Bobby Mackey's on Sunday. So this is a long week. And then the following week, we're going to go to one of our favorite places. We go 3 times a year, usually every year, the Exchange Hotel. That's in Gordonsville, Virginia. It's an old Civil War hospital converted into a museum. And there's an old summer kitchen right beside it that we also investigate. A train depot. Amazing location. So active. I think there are still some tickets left for that, right, Mike?
Yeah, there's 6 tickets left.
So it's going fast. What's the website? Where do people need to go online? What's the website to go get these tickets?
TheWraithChasers.com. And also Facebook has everything. Well, everything I think to the end of the year. Next year, I think there's actually 3 weekends that aren't booked yet, but we're up to almost 80 different ghost hunting events next year.
Wow,
that's already booked. So we're pretty solid, and there's a ton of new places we've never been to before. Everything from battleships to more different haunted to asylums to hotels, hospitals. It's like we got the whole gamut next year.
You know, I need to get together with y'all because me and Shane Pittman from the Holzer Files, we did an investigation here in my hometown of our hanging jail, which was featured on like America's Most Terrifying Places. The Ghost Brothers have been there. We need to get you guys down here. One more question for you two, and then one for Andrew, and then I'll let you guys get away. We've been going almost an hour. It hasn't seemed like an hour to me. It probably seems like 5 hours to Andrew, though, as we're keeping him from fixing up his amazing hair and making it even better. Mike and Chris, a lot of people have been asking in the comments, did you guys ever get a feeling that there might be a skinwalker involved out here, especially with all the different levels of activity, the different types of things people have seen out there at Vulture City?
Hey, man, with all the energy, all the different claims, all the history there, we were expecting anything to happen.
Anything, right.
Absolutely. You know, I've heard about Skinwalker Ranch. I've read about it. This place is not that different from Skinwalker Ranch as far as the claims and as far as the people who run it. They're both very passionate groups of people who have seen and heard a lot of things. And so, yeah, we were absolutely looking for anything. I mean, anything that we've ever come across or never come across. It was pretty much anything goes at Vulture Mine.
I think going into it, when we're there again next year, I think I'm going to have a little bit of more of that on my mind. Even as much as our rattlesnake story.
Mm-hmm.
By the time we started investigating, I forgot all about it. You know,
I'm going to wear my boots again.
It's like once I get in a moment, I'm not thinking of that. I kept having to rewind in a moment to think of extraterrestrials to giants and whatnot. But now that I soaked it all in, when we go back next year, I'm definitely going to have that in my mind. You know, so it's definitely going to be more on my toes.
I'd be really interested in trying to look into like what if there's any new investigative techniques you could employ to try and figure out, like, see if you can do some separation between one thing and the other. I'm not saying I know of any, but I think that'd be really interesting to look into. And finally, Andrew, I'm going to have what I think it would, Chris. I think that's a great idea, actually. Maybe if only we knew someone we could talk to about such a thing.
I know, right?
So, Andrew, I'm hoping to have the UFO brothers on very soon to basically do this same thing. And if you are free, would you be willing to hop on and do this again with the UFO brothers?
Sure. Why not? I love those guys.
Fantastic. I will get in touch with you and let you know. Everyone in the chat, thank you so much for joining us. Charlie Katz, Jenny Woodman, Hetty King, Leslie, Jamie. We all love you. I think we all know all of you. Thank you guys so much. And listen, I saw somebody earlier saying, I'm going to borrow my cousin's Peacock. There is no barrier for entry to Peacock. You don't even have, not only is it free, it's free, but give us your credit card and we'll run a penny to see if you have the money. There's no credit card. There's no nothing. It is free. All they want your email address. Yeah, they'll send you some spam. We're all dealing with spam every day. Facebook thought I was spam and banned me for a month because of it. So we're all dealing with spam. So there's no reason. You don't have to borrow anybody's anything. It's totally free. You don't need a credit card. Go watch these guys, Unidentified with Demi Lovato. Andrew, Chris, Mike, thank you so much for joining, and I hope we can do something like this again very, very soon.
Absolutely.
Have a great night, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.